r/AskReddit by Redmond Dtes. Do you know of someone who ruined their life in just a matter of minutes? If so, how did they do it? Excluding accidents and fights. Guy got intoxicated at corporate holiday party and made out at party, consensual, with work wife, who was a one-rank subordinate. HR unimpressed with violation of zero tolerance policy, fired for cause. Actual wife unimpressed with excuses, filed for divorce. She sold pills that she knew contained fentanyl to 2 people. The first one died. She found out, sold the same pills to another person. That person died, boom, life in prison. The texts between her dealer are what led to her arrest and exposed that she had full and complete knowledge that the pills would result in an overdose. When I was in my early 20s, I worked as an energy worker in field service. One of my really close friends was someone who I was on calls with regularly. A project lead pressured both of us to work on equipment we weren't qualified or trained to work on, and we unfortunately relented. We were halfway done with the task, and I walked out to the truck to grab water bottles. Halfway to the truck I hear a giant buzz, then a huge bang, then screaming. By the time I get back to the generator room, he's fully on fire. The cabinet had arc blasted, and he had been right in the way. By the time I got our fire blanket from the truck, he was basically fully engulfed. I was able to put him out and get him into as much of a recovery position as I could, and then I called our shop to get them to organize rescue to our location. He somehow survived 80-90% second and third degree burns, but coded so many times, he ended up with severe brain damage from oxygen deprivation. He lost his eyes, his sense of smell and taste, and much of his sense of touch. I think he lost his hearing too from the noise of it too. He's in a vegetative state in a full-time care facility now. I had frequent nightmares for years about it. The thing that stuck with me the most was, since the arc blast had hit him basically right in the face, it basically boiled his skin off. I ran in and saw him ripping large pieces of his face off while he tried to bat the flames off. The smell and sight of that never goes away. Cousin dove into the shallow end of the pool while drinking. Paralyzed, and life was never the same. An ex-girlfriend of mine, lovely person, was out at a restaurant bar with a friend one night. They had a meal and played pool. When they left, for some reason she drove his car. I don't know why, but I know that when she and I were together, she asked to drive my car, just for the experience of driving a different car. Maybe that was it. And I imagine, driving in someone else's car, you take a few extra seconds to adjust the seat and the mirrors and get your bearings. Unbeknownst to her, a teenager was driving a Mustang nearby. He was pissed because someone passed him a mile earlier and his ego was hurt. He decided to catch up to the guy and floored the Mustang, getting up to speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour. As my ex pulled out of the parking lot to cross the median, she had no way of seeing the Mustang barreling toward her over a hill. He crashed into her, killing her and her passenger. 2 seconds earlier or later, and they would not have made contact. I went to his trial. I remember her poor mother sitting there stone-faced while testimony was given. Several lives were ruined in that moment. My ex was only 26. She never got married, never had kids, never found her way in life. Any word on the killer? Did he get convicted? Yeah, he did. I don't remember how much time he was sentenced to, but he did go to prison for it. Edited to at, I had to look it up. He was 17 years old at the time. He was tried as an adult and for killing both people. He still only got 4 years in prison. He was excited to see a band. He decided to slide down the escalator wall between the up and down as he went to Subway. Tripped, fell 2 stories-ish, and that was the end. In a mildly similar thing, also a horrified witness. College frat party. Very chill vibe, not a rager. Mildly drunk kid, mid-conversation, decides to hop up and have a seat on the railing of a deck we were out on. He hopped up and did one of those panicked flails that you do when your chair is about to tip backwards on you, falls backwards off the deck, lands on his head. Medevac to the nearest trauma center. Did not make it through the night. I didn't know him, just seen him around campus. What was really sad to see was most people assumed he was being a drunk idiot at a raging frat party and wound up doing some dumb stunt. He really just made a minor drunken mistake or miscalculation and paid for it with his life. When I was a teenager, my dad and this dude had beef with each other. My dad was dating this guy's ex-wife, and he didn't like that. They bumped into each other at a bar and exchanged some words. My dad left the bar, and the dude was waiting for him outside. A car rolled up, and somebody handed the dude a handgun. He pointed at his head from about 2 feet away and pulled the trigger. Luckily for my father, the gun jammed. My pops wasn't taking any chances, so he took off running. The dude cleared the gun and emptied the clip, missing all but one shot that hit my dad in the back. My dad was already downtown, and the hospital was only a couple blocks away, or so he thought. Unluckily for my padre, the hospital was under renovation and preparing for relocation. When he saw that it was under construction, he slumped over and called 911 for an ambulance. The surgeons removed his kidney because it was too damaged to repair and survived. The dude got an attempted murder charge and almost 15 years in prison. I had a friend who got into his car drunk with 5 other people, flipped the car, and killed one of the passengers. He went from being this charming, good-looking, likable guy to a shut-in, and was seen as a monster to a lot of people in the community. He ended up committing suicide about a year after the accident. He was seriously broken about what had happened. Former roommate and friend. Building decent career, coaching a local youth sporting team, going to grad school, and just bought a house. Turns out he had CP. Lots of it that he got on the deep web. Custom photoshopped. With faces of kids from his youth team. Accidentally uploaded it to Adobe Cloud, and they sent the feds after him. Trial is ongoing, but he's likely going away for a long time. Kid I went to high school with wasn't going to graduate and decided to protest by speeding and doing wheelies on the road in front of the school. On his 3rd round, he passes a pickup truck, knocks his leg on the bumper, and is thrown from the bike, right on his head, snapping his neck. School posthumously graduated him. Edited to help clear up questions. Happened in 1995 on the northern Illinois-southern Wisconsin border. I noticed his intelligence has been questioned. Let me share an additional anecdote. His nickname was Bob. When asked what it was backwards, he replied without guile or irony that it was oob. Whether you agree with the school's action in graduating him or not, locally it was considered window dressing, as the whole town knew of what happened within hours of his accident. The man that killed my grandfather had never so much as had a speeding ticket. He was married with kids and fell behind on rent. My grandfather that was in his 80s worked for the company that rented this guy his home for extra money. Grandpa couldn't reach him about his rent, so went and did a welfare check. The guy panicked and murdered my grandfather. Destroyed more than one life in a matter of 30 seconds. Pretty successful woman at a company I worked got drunk, took an Uber home from a party. Realized she left the keys to her apartment behind, so she decided to climb up to her 2nd-story balcony to get her spare set. She slipped, paralyzed herself, couldn't work for a year, racked up ridiculous medical debt, and the pandemic left her position useless, so she was let go. Guy I went to high school with was kicked out of his college ROTC and moved back home. After some time of living at home, his dad walked into his bedroom and went off about him being a lazy ass and needing to do something with his life. He decided he was going to take his gun and rob a bank. Supposedly the gun wasn't loaded. But he did successfully rob the bank and get away. Some time went by, he moved out of his parents' house and started living it up. He eventually told someone he trusted. That person turned him in. He was arrested and charged. He got a count for every person who was in the bank because he had a gun. You can decide if he ruined his life when he decided to rob the bank or when he decided to tell someone that he did it. My father punched a window out of anger. Severed the artery and ligament in his bicep. Almost bled out. Effectively removed his ability to work with his hands, which was the one thing he had going for him. He then became a moody piece of shit alcoholic. Actually, he always was one, but way worse after this. He then beat the neighbor across the road with a pipe after they got drunk and got into an argument. He was arrested and went to jail. My parents lost the family home. They ended up splitting. I went no contact with him. 2 years later he took his life. My former roommate had a great job, made great money, had his own house in which I rented a room. The only problem was, he was a serious alcoholic and a shitty person. He'd get up at 4:30 to go to work, get off at 2, and then hit the bar until 11. Every single night. Unless he had a girl coming over, then he'd come home at 10, do a quick clean up of his filthy room, and have obnoxious and very inconsiderate loud sex. He hit a guy who was riding his bike drunk driving his way home one night. Fled the scene, came home, and went to the neighbor's house and said he hit a pole. The neighbor called the police, and on the way to the house, they found the guy he hit with his front bumper next to the body. He went to jail for vehicular homicide. Did 6 months and got out. Now he lives with his parents and can't get a job because his story is a little infamous in our town. His sister took over his mortgage and lives in his house now. All he does all day is cry on Facebook about how life isn't fair and badmouths the guy he killed. Third-hand story from a former co-worker. One of the other Marines at the base where he was stationed in the 90s stole plastic explosives from the test range and tried to sell them at a bar that was literally line of sight from the base. The first person to show any interest was an NCIS officer. That guy might still be in Leavenworth. Lit a cigarette in an oil change pit when he was a teen. Flammable waste was illegally being stored down there, along with a lot of oil. Rest in peace. A guy I went to high school with was playing bottle rocket tag with some friends and took one to the eye, which blinded him. He was a senior, ready to go to college on a baseball pitching scholarship. That Aussie kid who, on a dare, ate a slug that had a parasite, developed an early brain infection, ended up in a coma for a year, woke up paralyzed, then passed away in 2018. He was only 19 when it happened. Security company. This happened before I worked there, but some co-workers told me the story. Guy was doing well at his job. Got lots of promotions, on his way to lieutenant, but was too into his job and got a police scanner that he would listen to. One day, just as he was getting off work, a high-speed chase went by. He hopped in his personal vehicle with his firearm, got to the front of the chase, blocked the suspect in, and pulled his gun. Suddenly the cops were much more interested in the crazy guy with the gun. Got hit with several felony charges. A kid I went to high school with didn't luck both ways when he was crossing the street on his skateboard. A motorcyclist hit and killed him. The motorcyclist was hospitalized and lived. Some guy tried to come into my nightclub when he was clearly too drunk. I made the call to not let him in, so he starts shouting at me and tries to aggressively walk up to me. I put my hands up in defense and he's pushing back against me. Then the dude lunged at my boss next to me, so my boss shoves him. The guy tumbles backwards and slams the back of his head on a curb. Paralyzed from the neck down forever. Tried to take my boss to court for $15 million, but the camera showed this guy instigating everything. He was gonna be the one to put our dinky little private school on the map by going to the NFL as a kicker. He fell off a picnic table that was being pulled behind a pickup truck at a party. Pasture surfing. By the time I saw him again a year later, he could almost feed himself without assistance. Kid in middle school was walking home with headphones in, stopped to wait for a train to pass, but was unfortunately standing on another train's tracks as he waited. Local police chief did a hit and run over the weekend on a parked unattended vehicle in his department vehicle. By the end of the day Tuesday, he was resigning. State police investigated and issued a bunch of summary offense citations. DUI was not among the charges. No one was hurt, and the guy resigned. But, you know, there's only one reason you drive away from hitting something after midnight. A neighbor, his wife and his friend, and friend's wife, were at the neighbor's house. The two men both got into arguments with their wives, and decided to go out drinking down the street. A few hours later, I'm woken up by my sister banging on my bedroom door. I was staying with them at the time, because a car crashed, doing probably 80 and a 25 miles per hour, right next to our home. I jumped out of bed and got outside to see the neighbor's car crashed into a tree and two men trapped inside. The tree the car hit stopped them from ramming into another neighbor's house, and they hit it so hard, the battery was in the street after ours. Their car caught fire, and we had to watch them burn to death, still see it and smell it, every now and then when trying to sleep. I had never met the wife, so I had no idea who she was when she came up and asked me what happened, so I said some guy crashed his car. She took off running after she recognized the car. Can't believe I told her that her husband died so bluntly. A guy I know robbed a bank with a note saying something along the lines of, "Put the money in the bag." Was released on bond within a few weeks. Went back to the same bank with another note and robbed it again. I think he got 35 years. Multiple instances comprised of multiple minutes each, but yeah. My ex sent CP to himself via email, and the company immediately reported it to the police. He was arrested a couple weeks later and is now serving a 7-year prison sentence with lifetime registration. A guy I worked with at Walmart stabbed his girlfriend and killed her when she said she was pregnant. My buddy was driving too fast on a wet road, lost control, and hit a tree, killing his best friend in the process. It ruined him. Guy I went to high school was at a bar. Spoke to a girl at the bar. She said she had a boyfriend. He said okay and left it alone. Boyfriend was not impressed. Waited for him to go out for a smoke, and sucker punched him. Fell, hit his head, and died. So pointless. A guy I used to work with tried to rob a bank in blackface to make police look for a black man. Good thing his efforts were terrible. This was maybe 15-ish years ago, so I don't know if he's out of prison now or what. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more. Have a nice evening. Tell your friends about me.